We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Tesam and Beis in Mesechet Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 39b. On the previous summit, the Gemara had asked, how does Shmuel know that our Mishnah is specifically talking about a situation where the property of the mevaker, the property of the person visiting, is asur, is prohibited to the person who is sick? And the Gemara answers, Mas Nisan Kashise. The reason Shmuel knew that was because the distinction made in the Mishnah bothered him. My irya datani omed avalo yoshev. Why does the Mishnah say that the person can visit standing up, but he cannot visit sitting down? Why would you make such a distinction? Shma mina de nichse mevaker asun alacholi. You see that the case in the Mishnah is that the property of the mevaker, the property of the person visiting, is asur to the person who is sick, and then it would make sense to make us such a distinction that the person visiting is allowed to stand up, but he's not allowed to sit down because of the prohibition for him to give benefit to the person who is sick. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reish Lakish says, Remez lebikur cholin min haTorah minayin. Where do we see a hint to this idea of visiting the sick from the Torah? Shenemar, like the pasuk says, this is by Korach. It says, Im kemos kol ha'adam yimusun elo fkudas kol adam v'gomer. It says, if they die in the normal fashion, Moshe Rabbeinu says, if Korach and his congregation die in the normal fashion, then that shows that I am not really doing what I'm being instructed by Hashem, but rather I'm just doing it on my own. And so the Gemara says, "My mashma." So what is the implication from this pasuk? Where do you see anything in this pasuk about bikur cholim? And the Gemara answers, "Amar Rava." Rava says, "Im kemos kol ha'adam yimusun eila." It means as follows: if these people die a normal death, meaning shein cholim umutalim barisason, that they're sick and they're in their beds, uvnei adam mevakrim osan, and people are visiting them, and that's really being learned out from the part of the pasuk which says ufekudas kol adam, that the people, meaning to say, if kudas kaladam here, they're darshaning it as, and people will visit them. If people visit them because they're sick, mahabrios omrim, then what are people going to say? Lo Hashem shalachani lazeh, that it wasn't Hashem that sent this person. Hashem didn't send me, says Moshe Rabbeinu. Then you can take it as a sign, if they don't die in abnormal death, you can take it as a sign that I'm not really a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, Darash Rava darshans also the psukim by Korach. In Bria Yivra Hashem, it says if Hashem will create a creation that will swallow them up, and it means as follows: in Bria Gehenim Mutav Tia. If Gehenim has already been created, then it's good. And in Lav, and if not, so Yivra Hashem, then Hashem should create Gehenim for these individuals. But the Gemara says, Ini, is this really the pshat in the pasuk? Is Moshe Rabbeinu really not sure whether Gehenim was created or not? Vatanya, but we learned in a brayso. Shiva devarim nivru kodem shenivra ha'olam. There were 7 things that were created before the world was created. Elohein, and they are as follows: Torah, uteshuva, Gan Eden, v'gehenim, kisei hakavod, uveis hamikdash, ushmo shel Mashiach. The 7 things are Torah and teshuva and Gan Eden and Gehenim and the kisei hakavod and the Beis Hamikdash and the name of Mashiach. And the Gemara now explains each one. Torah dechsiv, Torah because it's written. Hashem kononi reishis darko, it calls it reishis. The idea being again that it was created before the world was created. Teshuva dechsiv, and teshuva because it's written. Beterem harmi uladu v'techolel v'gomer tashev enosh adaka, talks about teshuva, and it says before the mountains were created, before the world was created. And Gan Eden dechsiv, Gan Eden because it's written Vayita Hashem Elokim Gan Be'eden Mikedem. Mikedem literally means in the east, but we're darshaning Mikedem, that Gan Eden was created early, from before the world was created. Gehenim dechsiv, and Gehenim because the pasuk says Ki Aruch Me Esmol Tifta. It means from a long time ago. Aruch referring to Gehenim, that was created. Kisei Kavod dechsiv, the Kisei HaKavod because it's written Nachon Kesachon Meyaz. Again, your throne was from a long time ago. Beis Hamikdash dechsiv, and the Beis Hamikdash because it's written Kisei Kavod Morom Meirishon. Again, it's Meirishon. It was created long ago. And Shemo Shel Mashiach dechsiv, the name of Mashiach, as it is written Yehi Shemo Liolam V'Gomer. It says in this pasuk as well that the name Shemo refers to the name of Mashiach that was created long ago. And so you see from this brayso that Gehenim was created before the world was created. So why is Moshe Rabbeinu not sure whether Gehenim was created yet or not? And the Gemara says, Ela hachikama. Rather, what Moshe was saying was as follows: if there's already been an opening for Gehenim, if it's already created, good. V'im lo yivra Hashem, and if not, Hashem should create an opening for Gehenim for these individuals to go into. But the Gemara says, isn't it written, Ein kol chodesh tachas hashemesh? There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new can be created. So how can it be that Hashem will create from new this opening to Gehenim? And so the Gemara answers, Hachi Kamar, this is what it really means to say, Ihacha lo mikrav puma lo hacheli karev. If the opening is not near to this particular location, let's bring that opening near, let's bring it close to us for these individuals. And the Gemara continues, Darash Rava Darshins V'Amri Lo Amar Reb Yitzchak. Some people say that Reb Yitzchak says, Mai Dechsiv, what does it mean when it's written in the Pasuk, Shemesh Yareach Amad Zvula, that the sun and the moon, they stood still in their habitation? Shemesh V'Yareach B'Zvul, the Gemara says, are the sun and the moon, are they in the area called the Zvul? Mai Bayan, what are they doing there? V'Habirakia Kavi, aren't they in the area that's known as the Rakia? And the Gemara says, Melamid sha'olu shemesh v'yarech me'rekia l'zavul. What this pasuk teaches us is that the sun and the moon, they went from the Rakia up to the Zvul. V'yamru lefanav ribona shalolam. And at this time, during the time of the Adas Korach, they said in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribona shalolam, Master of the world, Im ata osa din leven Amram, if you do proper justice for the son of Amram, for Moshe Rabbeinu, if you do what is right by Moshe Rabbeinu, anu me'irim, then we're going to illuminate the world. V'im lav, but if not, ein anu me'irim, then we're not going to illuminate the world. At that moment, Diyara Bahen HaKadosh Baruch Hu threw at them chitzim v'chanisos, arrows and spears. Amar lahem, he said to them, B'chol yom v'yom mishtachavim lachem, every single day there are idolaters who bow to you. V'atem me'irim, and you still illuminate the world. B'chvodi lo mechisam, you never protest about my honor. B'chvod basar v'dam mechisam, but you protest about the honor of flesh and blood, about the honor of Moshe Rabbeinu. B'chvod basar v'dam mechisam. V'chol yom v'yom, and the Gemara says that every single day, Yorin behen chitzim v'chanisos, he throws at them, they throw at them the arrows and the spears, u'me'irim, that's what causes them to illuminate. It's only because they are attacked, so to speak, that they illuminate for the world. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, la'or chitzecha yahalechu, a reference here to chitzecha, to the arrows, that causes the illumination. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Bikur cholim ein lo shir, there's no amount when it comes to Bikur cholim. And the Gemara says, "My ein lashir." What does it mean that there is no set amount? Savar of Yosef Lameimer of Yosef thought to say that it meant ein shir lamatan schar, that there's no amount for its reward. Its reward is unlimited. But the Gemara says, Amar le Abaya, Abaya said to him, V'chol mitzvahs miyeh shir lamatan schar. And when it comes to all mitzvahs, is there ever a limit to the amount of the reward? That's true by all mitzvahs, that the reward is unlimited. But we learned in a Mishnah, have a zoyer b'mitzvah kala kibechamura. You have to be careful by a light mitzvah, just like a stringent mitzvah. She'en ato yodea matan schar shel mitzvahs, because you don't know what the reward really is of mitzvahs. That implies that there is no set amount, there's no limit for the reward. So that cannot be what the Brisa means when it says Bikur cholim ein lo shir. Elo Amar Abaya, so rather Abaya says what the Brisa means is as follows: Afilu gadol eitzel katan, even a person who is great, he has to do Bikur cholim, he has to visit someone who is of a lower stature. Rava Amar, and Rava says, Afilu meya pamim b'yom. What the Brisa means is, even if you're going to visit 100 times in one day, there is no limit to Bikur cholim. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yacha bar Chanina, Rabbi Yacha bar Chanina says, Kol hamevaker chol, anyone who visits a sick person, notel echad mishishim betzaru, he takes away 1/60th of the sick person's suffering. And the Gemara says, Amri lei, so they said to him, Imkain, if so, le'alun shisen v'likmua, 60 people should go visit, and that will heal the person, he'll be completely healed, because each one will take 1/60th of the suffering. And the Gemara says, Amar lei said back to him, Kisuraisa devei Rebbe, it's like the tenths of the house of Rebbe, this we'll explain in a moment, uveven gilo, and furthermore, it's only by somebody who's born by the same constellation, only such an individual takes away 1/60th of the person's suffering. And what is this tense of Rebbe? Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Rebbe Yomer, Rebbe says, let's say you have a daughter who's being supported from the property of the brothers. In other words, the father dies, and so the property has to give mizonos, has to give sustenance to the daughters, and the rest is an inheritance for the sons. So she's being sustained from the property of the brothers. So notelas iser nechasim, she can take 1/10 of the property to support herself. And so they said to Rebbe, Amrulo, they said, Amrulo le Rebbe, they said to Rebbe, Lidvarecha, according to you, that the daughter takes 1/10, Misha yeshlo eser bonus, if somebody has 10 daughters, uven, and 1 son, Ein lo leben, b'makom bonus klum, the son's not going to get anything, because each daughter is going to take 1/10, and that's going to be 100% of the property if there are 10 daughters. So Amar lahen, so he said to them, you're misunderstanding what I mean by 1/10. Rishona notel Telas Isser Nechasim. The first one takes 1/10. Shniya b'Meshech, the second one takes 1/10 of what is remaining. And Shalishas b'Meshech, and the third one takes 1/10 of what is still remaining. V'chozros v'cholkos b'shaveh. Then after each one has taken their portion, they take all of that property, they put it all together, and they divide it evenly among themselves. So it's not 1/10 of the total, it's always 1/10 of the remaining. And the same thing is true by the sick individual. It's 1/60th, not of the total, but 1/60th of whatever remains of the illness. And so therefore, even if 60 people were going to visit, that would not take away the entire illness. And the Gemara continues, Rav Chelbo Cholash, Rav Chelbo became sick, Nafak Achriz Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana went out and he announced this fact, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Amud Aleph.